Embers of Hope by Neon Sanketsu, Chapter 15. There's no going back. Change is a part of life, my son. Sometimes change is pleasant, sometimes it isn't. And you, well, you've changed things. There's no going back now. You are a lion among lambs, a king among peasants. Let them hear you roar. Salem, there's no going back. Staked your claim, have you? Weiss was seldom the sort to flinch. These days, as she faced her troubles head on and conquered them, and consequences be damned, she was a Schnee, damn it. As such, she held that title with pride. It was the only way for her to live. No longer did she hide in the face of adversity. When she saw trouble, she did not run away. And yet, when she heard Willow's words, her congratulations, she actually considered it. Her mother awaited her in the parlor beyond, utterly at her ease. As she lay sprawled on a couch, there was a slender flute of wine clutched between her fingers, yet, for all that, she seemed perfectly cognizant enough to notice her as she tried to slip out of Naruto's room. Certainly, she really did look quite nice in that dark gown. Hello, mother. Have been caught out. She have been caught out. She flailed for something to say. That's a nice dress. Do you like it? Willow caught her staring and preened a little. It was a gift from Watts. I think it suits me. Weiss made a face. Her mother was not having sex with that man. No, nay, never. Purged it from her mind. The only worst thing would be tearing, and now it was in her head. Out, out, out. I suppose congratulations are in order. Willow Schnee raised her glass in salute, every bit at her ease. Should I be expecting another grandchild? Naturally, her mind and someone else went right into the gutter. Oh, am I going to have a little brother? Weiss felt her face flame. What? No, we haven't gone that far. Yet it had been a near thing back then, but they both had enough restraint to realize unpredictable success would have been disastrous. Venom aside, neither of them had the slightest idea how to raise a child. They weren't much too young for such a responsibility. He was the outlier. Everything else, though, well, they'd had a great deal of stress to work off. She flashed back a little and shivered. Her arms looped around his neck as he bit her nape, marking her neck arching back as she clung to him for dear life. His hand cupped her rear as her left leg threaded with his, a gasp fleeing from her lips as he all but pressed her against the wall. And treacherous thoughts! And she whirled and bashed her head against the nearest wall, once, twice, thrice. Aura crackled dully. Willow saw the glazed look in her eyes, and her smile took an impish quality. Feeling better? Muffled gibberish answered. Have it your way. And she tipped the glass back to her lips and drank deliciously. Then I suppose I shall have to settle for Venom. For now. An inky tendril burst from Weiss's right shoulder to wave at her at the smiling Schnee. Hello, Grandma. Weiss pinched the bridge of her nose to stave off a migraine. He says hello. Yes, I gathered as much. Straightening but a little, she laid the glass down on a nearby table of dark quartz. Still, if you won't seal the deal with him, perhaps I should. Nuclear. Her thoughts went absolutely nuclear. Weiss shook her head mightily, sending her ponytail thrashing from side to side. Winter and the others were one thing, but her own mother. Her mind revolted against the idea with singular ferocity, so much so that she nearly hissed. But you said you didn't mind sharing with Winter, or... Weiss twitched. Venom, sweetie. Yes, Mom. Hush, Mommy's very angry right now. Okay. Willow tilted her head. Is that a yes, then, or... He's mine. Weiss swung her fist out, shattering a wall. I won't let you have him. She realized her words a moment later, what she just said, and her hands flew to her face. Mother blinked once, somewhat taken aback, then her smile returned, and Weiss knew she'd fallen into her trap. Mother didn't smile often these days, but when she did, well, she'd taken to her chance better than... She had taken to her change better than most. If anything, it had sharpened her mind tenfold. Oh, yes, Mother liked to scheme. It was only a test, my dear. Rest assured I have no intentions of taking him from you. Her eyes softened as she climbed to her feet. Be happy. You deserve it. Weiss felt her teeth chatter a little, and not from fear. Was it just her, or had the temperature plummeted suddenly? Oh, Willow called as she sashayed away. I'm fairly certain Winter knows. Cinder, too. With a pang of dread, she realized why it was so cold. There's a blizzard outside the tower, isn't there? Willow hummed. Have fun at Beacon, dear. Lyran opened his eyes, blinked once, twice, thrice. Why? He frowned at the bars. Am I in a cell? Oh, I believe you know. A shudder shot down his spine. He knew that voice, hated it, feared it. Sure enough, Salem herself stepped into view, eyes aglow in the gloom. Ren shrank back. Where's Nora? Not here. Naruto's mother ran a hand over the bars, fingers sparkling with magic. I'm not aware of any of this. Before you go casting blame, I went to no small length to deceive her. I'm actually quite cross with you right now. He winced, realizing quite suddenly why they hadn't bothered to chain him. Are you going to torture me? No, I'm going to keep you here and talk to you until you see reason. Red eyes flashed in the dark as the queen took a seat outside his cell. So let's have a little chat, dear. You broke that girl's heart. So, how do I look? Naruto bit back a wince as Nora performed a merry little twirl before him, skirt swirling around her thighs. 5 little words, a simple series of syllables, and yet they promised doom if he spoke poorly. She'd cornered him in his room sometime after Weiss left back for Beacon. While normally he wouldn't mind such a thing, there was an angle to her words, a note of discord that instantly left him ill at ease. In all fairness, Nora didn't look angry at the moment. She seemed quite pleased with herself, actually, and she was still waiting for his reply. Best give it. With a long-suffering sigh, he sat up a little straighter in bed and laid his book down. You look nice, he shrugged. You always do. His grin grew. Notice anything different? Naruto looked up. Naruto looked down. Naruto found nothing out of the ordinary at a glance. Nora looked much as she always did, all bright colors and bubbly personality, a bouncing bundle of chaotic energy. Wait, he inhaled sharply, catching a faint scent that he'd not noticed before. It was muted, hidden, but noticeable all the same. Blue eyes widened as realization clicked into place. You didn't. Nora laughed at him, then quite suddenly her body changed. It happened with neither word nor warning. One moment she looked much the same as she always did, swaying back and forth on her heels as an eager child might. Then she doubled over with a pained gasp, clutching at her sides. Naruto felt a shift in the air and started forward, only for her to suddenly straighten. Her eyes met his, a taut with pain. Nora, I'm fine, she slurred a little. Just give me a second. From where he sat, Naruto had a perfect view as Nora's blue eyes blazed red as the whites of her cherry orbs became a dark and all-encompassing black. He looked on aghast when her lovely ginger hair turned an ashen silver, while her already pale skin became a positively pallid. With a sickening pop, bits of white red-rimmed bone manifested just above her shoulders and tore through her shirt, punching down to form a crude chest plate just above her breasts. It did interesting things to her bosom, and he tore his gaze away, just as well, because in looking up, he saw the rest of her change. Red veins burst through her cheeks, around her eyes, pulsing now with each heartbeat. Phew! She straightened with a sigh, her voice running a low contralto of pure delight. That's much better. You know what they say, better out than in. You took a dip in the pool, didn't you? Yep. Her smile was the darkest of shadow. Feels great. He sighed. She winced. Are you mad? A small part of him was. The pools of darkness were dangerous, deadly things. They could kill you if you weren't prepared. Russell, Duff, and Sky learned that lesson the hard way. Sometimes the change was instant. At others, you might be trapped for hours, unable to move, much as Coco was. So yes, he found himself angry, and yet also strangely proud. Nora looked content, happy as she hadn't been in quite some time, as if she'd found a missing piece of herself. Who was he to deny her that? No, he swallowed his words. Not mad, just startled. That was reckless of you. You're not going to shout at me, she dithered. You won't say I was wrong? No. Nora's face closed down for all of an instant. Naruto frowned. Nora, a hand waved before her face. You are... She slammed into his arms with a shriek of pure glee, all but bashing him against a wall in her haste to get at him. Naruto barely had time to grunt before the back of his skull struck something hard. Stars burst across his vision, sending him reeling for all of a moment until he caught himself. Reality spun back as he found himself with a handful of grinning girls. I knew you'd understand. She nuzzled his neck affectively. You always understand. What can I say? I'm a people person. I'm sure Ren was pretty startled too. She winced in his arms. Right, Rennie. Yeah, that went well. Call it hindsight, call it sixth sense, call it blindly bloody luck, but an awful thought occurred to him in that instant. Nora hadn't mentioned Ren until he'd prodded her. Under normal circumstances, she couldn't stop talking about him. Why the sudden change? Nora, where's Ren? It was the wrong thing to say because she stepped back and looked away. Sleeping? Nora, the grenadier chewed at her lower lip, knees twisting from side to side in thinly veiled anxiety. She looked left, then right, then left again, as though she expected the very shadows to spring alive. Just like that, the thin veneer of calm she had constructed fractured. We fought. When she finally spoke, her voice was a low whisper, subdued in a way she seldom was. He was so angry with me. She sniffled a little, unable to meet his gaze. He shouted, I shouted back, tried to make him understand, but he wouldn't listen. Quivering hands rose to cup her face. I wanted so badly to make him understand, but I couldn't. Nora, Naruto edged forward, repeating his question. Where is he? Where's Ren? Here at last. She looked at him. He's gone. His heart thudded to a stop. What? He wanted to leave. The words came thumbing out, nothing to hold them back. Not to hold them back now. I hurt him. I didn't mean to. Then he gasped as she regarded him with red, watery eyes. I knocked him out, but he wouldn't wake up. So I took him to Uncle Merlot. He said he was fine, just a bad knock on the head. But a deep breath now to steady herself. He told me to throw him in the groom pool. I couldn't. So he told Salem. Then she came and took Rennie away. She wouldn't tell me where. I don't want to know. She scrubbed at her eyes, tiny sobs fleeing from her lips as her chest heaved. We were friends for so long. We were supposed to be together forever, but he turned on me, and I hurt him. She looked up at him with those glassy orbs. Why do I hurt everyone I love? She looked so pitiful, so miserable, so alone that his legs moved of their own accord. So did his arms. 3 rapid steps brought him to her side, and he pulled her into a warm embrace. She struggled for a moment, to no avail. He'd always been stronger than her. Stop, let me go. I'll hurt you too. You won't. He held her close, uncaring as she clawed at him. But I will, eventually. She willed. You, Ren, even Ruby at one time. I can't control myself now. He flailed for a solution and uttered the first words that came to his mind. Then I'll teach you how. Problem solved, right? Nora went still. You will. I will. He reached out and clasped her palms in his. What are you feeling right now? What you're going through? It's something most of us dealt with. His fingers twined within hers, not noticing her flush. You think you don't have any control over your grim form, that you'll just be wild and feral for the rest of your life? But that's not true. He closed his eyes, released her hands, and let go of his human form. It was like a deep exhale, releasing a sneeze he hadn't even been aware of. The chance came on quick, and he embraced it in all its dark glory as his eyes shimmered red and black. In an instant, the healthy tan of his skin took on an almost ghostly pallor. His hair lost its luster and became a horrible shade of white-gray, so bright as to be unnatural. Darker emotions whirled within him, but they held no sway over him. He leashed them with ease and faced her. See? He spread his arms with grin. Perfect control. Everyone learns it sooner or later, even if Ren rejected you. I won't. His words had the opposite effect he intended. Nora's head hit his chest. Promise? Always. Always, he chuckled. Nora nestled deeper into his arms with a noise caught somewhere between a sob and a sigh. Then she looked up. Crimson orbs met scarlet slits. Something stirred in the air between them. Naruto recognized it first. He tried to step back, but he was a hair too slow. It cost him. She surged up in his grasp and kissed him. Wild and frantic, her mouth strove against his, all sadness and sorrow. Tell me to stop, she whispered between kisses, her hands threading through his hair. Tell me you don't want this right now, because if you don't... She pulled away, giving him a chance. Just one last chance. I don't think I'll be able to stop loving you. He couldn't. He'd held back for Ren's sake, kept respectful distance from Nora as any true friend would, but now Ren was gone, departed to parts unknown. She was hurting, and he was awakened now. Wise and her words had affected him. Why restrain himself if it meant hurting those around him? No, that was an excuse, and he knew it. There was a beautiful woman in his arms, someone who craved love and understanding, acceptance. When she kissed him again, he found himself growling, restrained, crumbling like so much glass. What's the harm? A nasty voice whispered in his ear. You want her. She wants you. This is your birthright. Enjoy it. Something cracked in Naruto's resolve, and so he fell that much further. But what a beautiful fall it was. His arms tightened around her waist, and he whirled, crushing her against the wall. She gasped as his hands found her rear and lifted her. Said gasp was muffled as he crushed his lips against hers. Her hips ground against his as she reached for his belt. He wasn't having it and grabbed her by the wrists, forcing her palms up to trap them above her head. No, the word was a growl. Clothes stay on. Naruto laughter greeted him and his restraint. That was unexpected. Nora's eyes flashed with dark exhaustion as he leaned back, chest heaving for breath. Well, that does it. I don't think I can let you go anymore. And then she kissed him again, and he had no more time for thought. Summer Rose slipped away into the shadows, unseen by the pair. Another had fallen to him. They were all blind, but she would make them see. Oh yes, she swore she'd see it through, one way or another. So this is Beacon. I thought it would be bigger, you know? Naruto cast a withered eye about, considering the campus as one might a round juicy apple, ripe for the picking, or so his instincts said. He'd heard so many stories about this place from Dad, Ospen, but to actually be here in person was a dream come true. To see it firsthand, to walk among potential students, people who hadn't a clue who he was or what he could do, it was like a breath of fresh air. Or there was a part of him that wanted nothing more than to enjoy their halcyon days in Salem's tower, but he knew that couldn't last forever. Like it or not, they were growing up. Really, having them try their luck as huntsmen, however temporary, hadn't been a whim. It was a preordained move made by Salem and Ospen alike. Homeschooling only did so much. After all, where else could they get a proper education? Vacuo, much too hot and dead and awful. Atlas, not a chance. Onward had been erratic as of late. Naruto didn't rightfully know what that meant, but he'd taken his father's warning to heart. Mistral wasn't an option thanks to Uncle Leo, but his grip on Haven wasn't nearly as secure as Salem wanted. No, it had to be Ville. If they wanted a taste of normal life, it had to be here. Ospen held full sway over Beacon and much of the city beyond it. His word was as good as law here. He was trusted, idolized. Of course, this was a risk, but everyone believed themselves ready. They must be. They had to be. And you jinxed it. He jumped a little as he heard the voice again. It had become increasingly loud. Of late, he'd begun to wonder who it was. You'll find out sooner or later. Likely sooner, knowing your luck. Reality snapped back like a rubber band and he shook his head. Still made him a little nervous. Smuggling 12 teenagers into initiation promised to be an experience, let alone forging their transcripts. That was part of the reason they were coming early in separate groups. If Cinder and Winter got it into their heads to follow them here, well, it was a mad little plan, but then again, they were all mad here. Remember, he muttered as they walked, keep yourselves under control. Weiss and Yang quirked a brow. Excuse me? Hey, it's not you two I'm worried about. Ruby latched onto his arms. Dibs. It's this one. Hey. Naruto sighed. This was probably going to be a beautiful disaster, but it wouldn't be their disaster. It promised to be an interesting year. Remember, he muttered as they walked, keep yourself under control. So, Ruby said, purpose of nothing. As far as team names go, I was thinking Team Rocket had a nice ring to it. Yang and Ilya guffed. Blake rolled her eyes. Coco quirked her brow. How would you even spell that with any of our initials? Ruby stuck out her tongue. Well, obviously, I'd be the R, and Coco could be the C, and then, she wrinkled her nose as she tried to puzzle it out. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Weiss sighed. She's a dolt. Naruto shrugged. Look, I'm fine letting the chips fall where they may here. Nora lingered. Hey, not to be a party pooper, but isn't that? Naruto followed her gaze and saw Ospen just ahead of them, waiting in the courtyard. Right, he'd almost forgotten about paperwork. You'd think a Prince of the Grim could ignore something like that, but no. They were here early, and there were forms to fill, things to sign, backgrounds forged, all necessary to conceal the truth of their existence. Like it or not, this was something he needed to do. His father saw him thither and coughed meaningfully into a fist. Standing there won't help, son. Naruto groaned. Maybe he should run for it after all. Nope, no good. Ospen would catch him. Look after them for me. He gave Yang a nudge. I'm thinking this is gonna take a bit. She elbowed him right back, grinning from ear to ear. Sure thing, killer. Have fun. Naruto scowled. Paperwork is never fun. Yang, it's evil. Evil. Her grin didn't waver. Better you than me. Traitors, the lot of them. Still, they were his traitors. With a sigh, he went to face his destiny. Wait, why was Ospen smiling? Something in that smile caused him to miss a step, just as well too, because Cinder and Winter stepped out from the looming archway behind the headmaster. They too were smiling. Neither was a pleasant smile. Oh, a ways behind him he heard Weiss gulp. How the hell did they get here ahead of us? Really, you underestimate a maiden in a schnee, and that's your question? Cinder laid claim to his right arm. Naughty boy, sneaking away like that. Winter seized his left. You know what this means? One word summed up Naruto's existence in that moment. It went as follows. Bugger. Previous. Coco quirked a brow at the Ursha. Bitch, you did not just mess up my hair. Ruby raised her hands. Nice birdie. The giant nevermore shrieked. Not a nice birdie. You're cracked. Naruto laughed as he rode the Deathstalker into the ground. Not my fault. This thing's crazy. Yang looked up, frowned. She's riding a Nevermore. Why is my sister riding a Nevermore? How many people have you killed? I can either go with enough, or you couldn't fathom the amount of dead men behind me. Go on, soldier boy. Take your pick. That's your team. Mercury crashed backwards, metal legs flailing in the air as he cackled. James considered the soldiers arrayed before him. Do what must be done. Do not hesitate. Show no mercy. And the figure behind him smiled. John tilted his head. Pyrrha? Yes, John? Don't you think they're a little weird? Nora hitched up her skirt. Oi, knock that off. We'll get caught. And that's half the fun. Come on, live a little. End of chapter 15.